Doug's guy, Matt Moore, drafted more draft nuggets for us. He doesn't think VJ Edgecombe is going to fall past 4. But if he's the pick at 3, the Hornets do take Ace Bailey. What's our reaction to that selection? Plus, we'll give you a little role play a little bit later on in the show. Ooh, coming up next, Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast, and that does include YouTube. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Doug Branson, everyhornetsboxscore.com, also hosts Locked On NBA with Hayes and Matt Moore. We're going to go over a couple of his write-ups here in just a moment. I'm Walker Mayo. Listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. We had Matt Moore on yesterday. Matt Moore joined us and gave us some quotes here about the draft. So big Matt Moore day. He's dropping more stuff. Let's just go right to it here, Doug, because in his most recent write-up, here's what he writes. Things I believe, not know, but believe right now.
Okay.
Edgecombe does not make it past 4. Jeremiah Fears doesn't make it past 5.
Okay.
Tre Johnson doesn't make it past 6, but 3 is the problem. Philadelphia at 3 is the problem. He would also go on to write, the talk is loud that the Sixers are just not like, oh yeah, it's Ace Bailey for sure, lock it in. And it's much closer to, we might go a different direction. That's the vibe I got from him yesterday, where it kind of feels like they just aren't going to take Ace Bailey. It makes sense if you were to construct a prospect that would fit the mold of a Daryl Morey type guy. That guy does not look like Ace Bailey whatsoever. You know what it kind of looks like? Kind of looks like Tre Johnson. That mold kind of looks like Con Knipple. Kind of looks like those guys, Doug. And so it would make sense that Philly might just go with one of those guards, one of those shooting guards over Ace, and that leads to some very interesting scenarios for Charlotte.
Someone sent both of us, I believe it was on, I'm trying to look it up now. I believe it was on Twitter. Someone sent us over, I think this was Kyle Boone. No, Kyle Boone of CBS. And they did a comp of Tre Johnson, and Kyle's comp was Malik Monk. I went, no!
Yes. Oh, I'm in. I'm all the way in. I want Malik Monk. Makes sense, though. Bigger, but makes sense.
Well, bigger, I think more mature. I think Tre Johnson will be ready to accept all of the defense that's going to come from Charles Lee, the demands that are going to come from Charles Lee. I'm not sure that Malik Monk was all the way ready to hear that in his Hornets tenure, and he was more ready to hear it when he went to the Lakers, and then fully ready to hear it when he went to the Kings.
And plus I will say, like, the defensive stuff wasn't good for Malik. Similar, though, in that I loved Malik's passing coming out of college. Tre Johnson, but also not known for it. Tre Johnson, not known for his passing, but also I think is a good passer. I also think that the big difference is Malik was like really, his wingspan was short. Malik was short. And Tre, he actually has like a 6'10" wingspan or something ridiculous. So in terms of the length and the height is a little different. Length is very different between he and Malik. And that's something enticing for Tre, because if you can shoot like that and it actually translates immediately, there's a lot of selling points for Tre, which is why I understand that he won't fall past 6.
Okay, so this isn't a Tre Johnson segment. It's definitely not a Malik Monk segment. I don't want to go back down that road.
It's always your fault. Yes, you do, though. You bring it up more than anybody. You love talking Malik.
Well, the problem with Malik Monk is he couldn't shoot, until he got to Sacramento.
It's not true. Problem. It's not true. He shot 40% with the Hornets. Don't do this to me. It's not true. It's just not true. It's not.
Well, overall, but I think in stretches where it was meaningful for him to stay on the court, he couldn't shoot well enough. This was the James.
It's not a Malik Monk segment. You said
All
it's not Malik. You said it's not a Malik Monk segment. That's what you said.
Okay, I think for VJ Edgecombe, it's 50-50. I think Vegas feels the same way. It's 50-50 right now, whether he goes 3 or 4. And I think so much of it is, if the Sixers keep the pick, they could very well take VJ. I think if they trade the pick, it would to me, it seems more likely that it's someone moving up for Ace, but I could have that wrong. There could be a team that falls in love with VJ Edgecombe such that it could be the Hornets. The Hornets could say, hey, for a very small price, we'd like to lock in our ability because we brought VJ Edgecombe in here. He had a great interview. He's Hornets DNA through and through, and we want to make sure that we have the opportunity to bring that guy in. And that wouldn't totally be out of line with what we've seen from this front office so far, where they fall in love with a particular kind of player and a psychological profile such that they want to guarantee their opportunity to take that player. So that wouldn't be crazy either. So VJ Edgecombe goes 3 in that scenario to the Charlotte Hornets. The more interesting thing is if VJ goes 3 either to Philly or the team that they trade that pick to, then what do the Hornets do in that situation? Because they're going to have Ace Bailey sitting there, someone that at one point pre-Cooper Flag was viewed as, hey, this guy has an opportunity to be the number 1 overall pick in a strong NBA draft. And then the Rutgers season happened, and then Dylan Harper sort of overshadowed him a little bit. And then there were all of these questions in his game, and why isn't Rutgers winning? And why did he take that shot? That was a weird shot for him to take. And now here we are with Ace Bailey looking like the biggest candidate to fall from where he's been projected this whole time. And the Hornets have Brandon Miller, who profiles a lot like Ace Bailey's game. They already have that guy in Brandon Miller. Would they then select someone in Ace Bailey who also, he has big confidence. He wants to come in and make an immediate impact on the ball. Do they take that guy?
Yeah, so I don't think they do take that guy, right? If you're going to ask, do I think they take him? I don't think they do. But if we stick to the bullet point and we stick to the B, the law of the B, what if they take Ace Bailey? What if they do?
Can you imagine?
This was a question we ran into, and we slowly realized that they were going to take Brandon Miller. This was a similar type of question.
Right, because every year we go in and we think we know what they're going to do, and then they do something different. And so I think this year, for a change of pace, we should prepare ourselves for something we aren't prepared for.
Well, I mean, the Brandon stuff, again, we slowly realized, like, draft night, we started saying, hey, this is okay, Scoot's the second pick, and then a few days later it was like, well, it might be Brandon. And I remember putting out a video of a pigeon walking on an escalator but staying in the same place because it's walking up as the escalator is going down. And I described it as me. Describe it. It's a GIF. I don't want to do the whole GIF thing, though. So what happens is
Malik Monk
the pigeon walking up the escalator as the escalator is going down, staying in the same place, not making any headway whatsoever, and that was me walking back my Brandon Miller takes. That was, if the Hornets take Brandon Miller, I will be the pigeon on the escalator going the wrong way. Will I be doing that for Ace Bailey? No, I've tried to leave myself some room here. The whole fit thing, right? I actually... The reason that the fit to me isn't good, it's because of the shot selection. It's because the way Ace likes to play basketball does not align with the way that Charles Lee wants to teach the game of basketball. It does not align with the schematics of what a Charles Lee offense looks like. Defensively, it's not Cooper, because Cooper Flag is special defensively. Ace is not anywhere close to that. But it does at least check off the box of having a bunch of length out there. If you fell in love with the idea of having length at every single position, then Miles Bridges in your potential starting lineup would be the shortest player in your starting 5 as the roster is currently constructed. I like that. LaMelo, Brandon, Ace at the 3, Miles 4, Mark at the 5. God almighty. Yeah, you still have a lot of length, even if Brandon Miller and Ace Bailey aren't the strongest, even if they're not the best point of attack defenders, team defenders, they can, like, they're not great, but at least it's a lot of arms where if they can just hold up their arms for, 18 seconds of the shot clock, then it at least disrupts some passing lanes every 5th possession, which isn't nothing. So Ace Bailey fitting that mold, that would be useful. I think LaMelo would make Ace better. I think LaMelo would put Ace in some situations that would allow him to be better offensively. It's how much is Ace moving off the basketball, not camping at the elbow and looking for his shot, not willing to pass it at all. Is Ace truly telling the truth? Is he truly telling us that he's going to, one, alter a little bit of his game where he says, I'm a good passer, I just don't do it. I'm a bucket getter. Okay, can you pass a little bit? Because we got some shot makers in Brandon. That's the idea. We got a shot maker in LaMelo on catch and shoot. That's the idea. That's where the fit gets clunky, but it's not like it can't work. I could sell us on it if it was the choice. There are just other pieces here, Doug, that fit a lot better than what Ace Bailey does. And we're talking like a handful of guys that are going to be in this range.
I think we saw a recent example of a player being drafted to a really good team full of Hall of Fame players in Jonathan Kuminga, who whenever he gets on the floor does not look like he wants to change his game at all, does not look like he wants to defer to Steph Curry, one of the greatest players, certainly the greatest shooter of all time, one of the greatest players in NBA history, does not want to defer to that man, because to get to where some of these players get to, they have to have an irrational confidence. And that's what Ace Bailey has. And so I think he would have problems in Philly with Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, and Joel Embiid. I certainly think if he came to a team and looked at they said, hey guys, you won 19 games last year. I don't care about LaMelo Ball. I don't care about Brandon Miller, who's only in going to be in his third year, but really it's going to feel like his second year because he missed most of his second year. I think I can play my game. Okay. Please and thank you. So that's a problem. But let's take a pause because I need to take a breath, and then I will make a rationalization. If the Hornets do select Ace Bailey, I will think it's not a great idea, but I will try my best to rationalize it on the other side.
All right, let's do that. Coming up next on Locked On Hornets.
Bees everywhere!
Doug continues to talk about Malik Monk, he makes the case for Ace Bailey potentially being that selection for the Charlotte Hornets. That's coming up next. This episode is brought to you by DoorDash. NBA fans, you know what time it is. Playoff season means big performances and even bigger rewards. DoorDash is bringing the heat with a slam dunk deal for Dash Pass members during the 2025 NBA playoffs. It's called They Swoosh, You Score. Anytime a player drops 50 or more points in a playoff game, Dash Pass members score a free 3-piece crispy tender combo from Wingstop the very next day. Just place an order of $20 or more. Use the code Wingstop50 at checkout, and that combo is yours. Crispy, delicious, totally free. Offer valid noon to midnight the day after the game, and terms do apply. So here's the play. Again, sign up for Dash Pass to unlock this and more exclusive deals all season long. And when any player scores 50 or more in a playoff game, Dash Pass members can grab a free 3-piece crispy tender combo from Wingstop the next day with a $20 or more order and code Wingstop50. That's Dash Pass, your door to more savings, more flavor, and more ways to win. Terms apply. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Before you make your case, I've been dying to get to this Ace Bailey stat. We haven't talked about him a ton, at least within the last week or so. But I've been looking at College Basketball Analytics, a new website that I've just come across. It's fantastic. And Ace Bailey, the shots that he takes either at the rim or shoots from three, okay? So rim plus threes. Only 50% of his shot diet comes either at the rim or from the perimeter at the three-point line. That's in the 4th percentile in all of college basketball. My man just lives in the mid-range, and he's in the 99th percentile, Doug. The 99th percentile with mid-range twos. Not even in the paint twos. No, at the rim, in the paint. No, that's not what we're talking about. Mid-range twos, he is 99th percentile with 36% of his shot diet coming from that area of the floor. Again, only 50% of his shots coming at the rim or at the three-point line. So the question is, like, does that desire change with NBA coaching, or is that just always is that always what he wants to do? That's a big question about Ace.
Yeah, can he develop a regular season game? Because in the playoffs, that's actually super valuable. Being able to get a mid-range shot, and he can because of his long arms. Like he's not as tall as we thought he is, but he can get a shot over probably a lot of NBA defenders. He'll be okay in that respect. And if he can drive it down into the mid-range and do that, that's actually a valuable skill to have in the playoffs. The problem is the Hornets haven't been to the playoffs in 9 years. So is he going to be an effective enough regular season player to help them achieve that goal? That would be the big question. The big concern for me with Ace Bailey is that people had all of these lofty expectations of him before Rutgers, and then Rutgers happened, and now everybody's taking the comps from like Kevin Durant to Michael Porter Jr. And I always worry when the comp shifts that dramatically, when smart people go, hey, this guy looked like this, and then we saw him play college basketball, and now he looks like this. That's a concern. But what if they take him? What if they take Ace Bailey, 4th overall? What's my reaction going to be? I'm going to say, this is not a great idea. I don't think this is going to work out. But if it does, it's going to be because Ace Bailey is a star player. And they get that down the road. Or they go ahead and lock that in and then can sell another team a year later that player, that Ace Bailey could be a star for them. So the argument is just go ahead and take the best player available, particularly like if you don't think you're going to make the playoffs next season anyway, just go ahead and hold on to that asset and you can pull off a trade later. And I covet teams that are able to make the young for young trade. I mean, Tyrese Halliburton being a big example of that. Make the young for young trade and pivot to a player you want, but you've got to get that guy. You've got to go ahead and lock that guy down in the draft when you have the opportunity. The other argument would be, hey, look, so what? He's similar to Brandon Miller. Let those two fight it out. It's not as if Brandon Miller came in his first 2 seasons and played, didn't make an all-star game in his second season because he was injured, but hasn't had the opportunity to fully show us, oh yeah, for sure, number 100%, Brandon Miller's the real deal, all NBA future. I can see Hall of Fame player in this guy. No, he has improvements to make. So let him have a challenge. Let him have a player that's breathing down his neck, that wants his playing time, that wants his shots, that can challenge him. And one of those 2 players is going to come out of that fire as a future Hornet star. Let's see who it is.
Yeah, and so the Brandon Miller comps, because we're getting that a lot. I think that's happening because they're similar height. They're both skinny. The big thing on the court, you don't think that Ace Bailey is all that skinny? What was the reaction to that?
Well, I think it's more than that. I think it's the shot profile, his proficiency in the mid-range. I think the shot decision-making, I think people thought Brandon Miller a lot better than that. Discipline, I think people thought Brandon Miller a lot better than that. But and a lack of passing. I mean, I think I know you think that Brandon Miller's passing is underrated, but we haven't seen it rated yet.
No.
So I think there are more similarities than the body, is what I'm saying.
I thought that was true coming out of college. I've been disappointed about that in the NBA, but I thought it was true coming out of college. If you look at these evals coming out of college, their shot profile, the only thing that's similar is that they don't get to the rim a whole lot. But Brandon, again, wasn't taking mid-range jumpers coming out of Alabama. That is the opposite end of the spectrum. These guys couldn't be any more different, actually, with the shot diet in terms of mid-range jumpers.
So he compares more to Brandon Miller's game in his rookie season, or what he showed, what he wanted to do, and then of course they're trying to transform that in the second season.
So do you think Ace Bailey's going to take 10 threes? Right? Because that's what Brandon Miller's doing now. That's the point. And Brandon Miller, you could easily see that because he did that in college. Ace Bailey does not. So while Brandon is still shooting some mid-range jumpers, more than what people were giving him credit for this past year, people thought it was just completely erased from his shot diet. That's not true. In fact, he actually took a decent amount. But he also shot more threes than anybody in the league except for LaMelo. So if Brandon did that at Alabama, and he's doing that now, and he shot a decent amount his rookie year, well, that's something that is easily translatable. You like that. You want to see that. Ace isn't getting to the rim, nor is he shooting any threes. So, okay, Brandon and Ace both didn't get to the rim a whole lot. And Ace is finishing at the rim at least. Brandon really struggled the first half of his lone college season. So Brandon actually finishing pretty decently here in the NBA. It's just that he doesn't get there a whole lot. It's the fact that you don't provide a whole lot of rim pressure. So the 3-point shot, that's the big difference, right? That's the big difference between the two. But let's emphasize big here. Like, that's something that does matter. And that's why I want to focus on, we at least had one skill where you see that in an 82-game regular season, where you and I both wanted Scoot Henderson, but we both said Brandon's not going to fail, right? Brandon, we both said that as soon as he was selected. Brandon Miller is not going to fail. Are you going to be willing to be so bold when Ace Bailey is selected? Because I don't have that feeling. I don't have the feeling that, guys, Ace Bailey can't fail. I think there is a world where he's actually a bust.
Well, and I think that speaks more to the constitution of the player more than anything. Like, I think despite all of the stuff that happened right at the end of his college career that definitely had us all raising eyebrows with Brandon Miller, like, oh my God, how could he get caught up into that situation? Everyone that you spoke to said this guy's got a great head on his shoulders. He knows what he's doing. He's focused. He wants to be a great player. And those players typically have a higher floor. And they're not going to come in and like completely disrupt a team such that, you know, I mean, that was the Book Night thing. Like he came in and tried to choke the coach out. And that's when you head to bust land. It's not that James Book Night it's not that Book Night didn't have talent. It's that Book Night was not, he didn't have it all. He didn't have the constitution necessary to accept a role and then build on that role and become a part of a team.
My God, I was just talking about this with Smoke at WFNZ, how I don't think, even if we've lived it, we've talked about it as the events were happening, I don't think we've really truly understood how spectacularly the Book Night experience flamed out. Like just the whole 2021 experience, different reasons for Kai, much more sensitive reasons for Kai. For Book Night, we had him kicked out of a UConn game. Yep. We had the
Dorito
bag DUI thing. We had the coach back and just. I mean, that was all
have you ever worked?
Oh my God!
I know you love WFNZ, so I know this doesn't apply to you now, and I love what I do, talking about the NBA and the Hornets every day. But I'm sure both of us have worked terrible jobs in the past, and we don't have to talk about where those jobs were. But we've both worked terrible jobs in the past. But as much as we love what we're doing now, we always look fondly back on those times and we laugh about all of the weird stuff that happened at those places. To me, this is a universal experience. Yeah. Everyone has worked a terrible job and you laugh at those jobs more than anything that you laugh at in terms of the great job you have. And I think we'll look back on those times with the Hornets. If they ever start to make the playoffs consistently again, we'll look back and be like, man, you know, we probably hated talking about some of that stuff, but now we look back on it. And it's super funny.
I mean, like Book Night's not even in the league. That all happened within a year and a half. It is. All right. I'm sorry. Go on.
Insane. And apparently there were warning signs. I didn't cover that draft, but people I talked to say that there were warning. It's not as if it came completely out of nowhere. The Hornets just decided to ignore the warning signs and take the talent. So new front office, thankfully. I don't think they ignore those warning signs anymore, which is why I don't think they're going to take Ace Bailey. Not that I don't think that Ace Bailey has like personal issues. I just think you're talking about bringing someone in to be a system player. And you made the good point that like he doesn't play a kind of ball that Lee wants to play. And I think like everything we've seen from Indiana and Oklahoma City, who are in the finals right now, like scream to us, find system players to work with system coach. If you can do that across the board, it requires a lot of other things, but if you have that sort of locked in, it's going to make you successful over the long term. The final thing with Ace and Brandon, you're not going to hear me say this very often on this podcast, but if they draft Ace Bailey, I'm going to feel really bad for Miles Bridges because he's going to have to drive the basketball like 27 times a game. Because there's no one else. I mean, LaMelo struggles at the rim. Brandon doesn't go there. Ace doesn't want to go there. It's like, all right, Miles, strap up because, buddy, you're going to have to go in there 27, 30 times a game.
Right.
It's insane. Right. And all three of those players that I just mentioned all have question marks on the defensive end of the floor. Like, none of it makes sense. That's why VJ Edgecombe makes so much sense.
Yeah. God almighty. It's all Miles. And so can Ace shoot far away enough from the rim consistently enough and well enough to provide Miles with some space since he's the only guy? Like that's the way you combat it is if
ice
you just
Miles,
create enough space.
The ice tub is all for you. No one else gets the ice tub. It's reserved for Miles Bridges because he's going to go in there. He's going to have to be a bowling ball every single game because no one else can put serious pressure on the rim. It's insane.
Oh my God! And if LaMelo's out, I mean, at least he counters that with just the playmaking for others. If LaMelo's out and now somebody else has to handle the ball and put Miles into those situations at the rim, and he has to, and it's Miles. Honestly, it's Miles putting himself in that situation. It's a great point.
The only way I can rationalize taking Ace is if it's an investment play. If it's like, hey, he will perform well enough on a bad team that next offseason, we can unload this guy for a young player that we actually like that didn't fit as well somewhere else. because there's going to be another team, maybe that already has drafted a player in the last draft, that is a super talented player in a bad system, just like Ace Bailey, I think, would be in Charlotte. And you can flip Ace Bailey for the player that you actually want. That's the only way I could rationalize it, because from a basketball perspective, it doesn't make any sense to me.
All right, coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
Okay, are the Hornets one of the more likely teams to trade in this draft? And then again, I promise you some role play. We'll get right to it. That's in the last segment, LOH. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center, and you can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money, and you can start building wealth. It provides all-in-one convenience. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan for long-term goals. And it provides easy collaboration. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. More Locked On Hornets ahead. All right, Doug, why don't you set us up here? Do you want to go with the Hornets, one of the most likely teams to deal in the draft, question mark? Or are you just so excited about role play that you'd rather role play first? You tell me.
Let's save this most likely teams to deal at the draft. It's an article by Grant Hughes on Bleacher Report, and he names 5 teams. I think what's interesting about this, the Hornets trading in the draft, what does that exactly mean? I think that's an interesting question. And I also think that there's another team that I've mentioned a lot on this list that I think is also willing to deal and could be willing to deal with the Hornets. Okay. Let's tease that for tomorrow, because I really want to get, I think it's a segment that needs some time to breathe, and I'm not sure that we have all that time. I want to do some rapid fire role play instead. So assuming that the players currently on the roster are not dealt in a trade, whose role is safe next season? And what you have to take into account here are the players that the Hornets could go after in free agency, the players how the franchise values them right now, and the players that they could potentially draft. Whose role is safe?
100% safe?
Well, I think we just go down the line and we just
okay.
say, is this player safe or not? Like LaMelo, obviously, unless he's dealt, which again, assuming they aren't dealt, LaMelo's safe. I think his role with this team is 100% safe.
Well, so I guess that was my question. I don't want to make this too difficult, but I mean, I guess there is a world where they move off of LaMelo. You know, that there is that possibility. And if they drafted, I don't know, one of these guards, then would that allow them to trade LaMelo even more so? And I think these guards actually can play alongside LaMelo unless it's Dylan. So if Dylan Harper is the guy, and Dylan Harper isn't that selection at 2, and San Antonio just decides that we have too many guards, we don't think these guys can play with one another, then I know. But if they decide that he's not the guy, and then they draft Dylan, maybe that is the scenario that doesn't make LaMelo 100% safe. Maybe. But even still, if they draft Dylan, we should actually talk about this in the next couple of days. It's more trade LaMelo conversation, but I have a couple
okay, so yeah, the conversation that I want to have is they're not traded. And I think, but so you've actually talked me off this. So it's not 100%, but because they could trade up and get Dylan Harper and it not involve LaMelo Ball. So if that were to happen and they drafted Dylan, then I think LaMelo's role, just his role, not his minutes, but just his role on the team probably does shift in that he's not going to be asked to drive as much because Dylan is going to get some of those opportunities. His usage, if they draft VJ, his usage could change, but it won't change because of the draft pick. If they get Dylan, some of that usage is going to leak into Dylan's game. So I'll put his role probably is at 80% instead of 100%.
Yeah. I agree with you. And just the thing is, I think with all the other guards that are being thrown out there on the trade market, I actually think that means it's more likely LaMelo is here in Charlotte. If that was always the default easy answer because the odds played that way, the guards now like Darius Garland, somebody else. There have been a couple. I think that makes it more likely that the Hornets are going to keep LaMelo. But anyways, yeah, I'm with you with LaMelo. Let's move on. Josh Green or Brandon Miller. Let's go to Brandon Miller.
Brandon Miller. So number 2 takes the second most shots, second leading scorer. I mean, that's kind of the role that is for him right now with LaMelo on this team. How safe is that role for him next season?
The safest of anybody in the starting lineup. Brandon Miller's role does not change. Okay, here we are again. Let me change it a little bit.
If they take Ace.
If they take Ace, I don't think his role. Well, he's still going to be 2. What pushes him? So it's honestly one of the guards that would push him to 3, right? Because if you take Con Knipple, you take VJ Edgecombe, you take Tre Johnson, then he goes to 3. But even still, how much is that changing his shot diet? I still think Brandon's role is, I'll go 90% going to be the same. Maybe even more than that.
I think so. And the factor here is his connection with Charles Lee. I think even if they were to take Ace, to me, this is the central tension, which is that if they take Ace, Charles likes Brandon and is going to want to focus on Brandon, and it's going to be a little bit more of a sell job for Ace Bailey. Josh Green, very unsafe. Very unsafe.
Very much. And he's the guy. No, think about it. No matter who they draft, that's just what comes with being the weakest link starting 5-wise. So if they draft Ace Bailey, who doesn't play your position, all that means is that Brandon Miller is going to slide up or go to the 2 rather than the 3, and then Ace Bailey will play the 3. Yeah. And Brandon has familiarity playing both. So Josh Green, 0% safe. It doesn't mean he won't play that role, but it's 0% safe. I
think it's changing.
It's very
it has
much,
to change.
Yeah.
It has to change. I mean, look, I know that last season's performance, there's a lot of context in there. I think that he is still valued by that coaching staff for his defensive discipline and his ability to create chaos within a certain context, but it has to change if this team wants to get any better. Miles Bridges, safe?
I will say the corner threes, I know you hate them. I know we have gone very far on the Josh Green stuff.
I just like other stuff too.
I know. No, that's the thing. That's the fair part. That's the fair part. Yes. Josh does not give you a lot of other stuff. It's corner threes, and it's nothing else. Miles Bridges,
safe.
Damn safe, right? Maybe he's the other guy that you would pin next to Brandon Miller as the most safe.
Mark Williams.
Malawach is the only one. That would be the only interesting factor, and I don't think they're going to draft him. So, I
would say again, it's not only about the draft. I would say Mark Williams unsafe because I think they could make some moves that would supplant him as start. I mean, they've already tried. They already tried to trade him. It can't get less safe than you've already been traded and had to come back.
Well, and I was kind of going along the lines of what they'll do in the first round, but if you introduce what the Hornets will do with those second round picks, now this is the guy most affected by the second round picks, in my opinion. And so if you enter that into the equation, then now we're coming down a little bit. I'd go if you're just talking about how the draft affects your decision making, I'd go 70. With Mark.
Man, that's so high. I would go 30. I would go the opposite of that. I think his role is
with just the draft. With just the draft is what I'm talking about.
I'm saying in terms of his role for next season, assuming he himself is not traded, assuming he is on the team, I think if they're serious about winning games, they're going to look at some other answer there at the center position. I don't buy. You cannot sell me that he's a part of a core when he was traded. Let's do the rest of the bench and some of those guys. Let's do that on a future show because I don't want to rush that either because we got Grant Williams, Tre Mann injured. We don't know if Tre Mann's going to come back for sure. Tijon Salon, what's his role going to be next season? We can answer all that in a future show.
Do you want to do a mock draft real quick? Fit that in?
Oh boy, I'll make it up tomorrow. Here we go. Day 49. I finally started to rack up the debt.
We're
out of time. What am I going to do?
We got close. All right, that'll do it for Locked On Hornets. No mock draft today, man. A streak is broken.
Two
it's
tomorrow.
Tough, but it was a good run. It was a good run, though. Doug Branson, everyhornetsboxscore.com, Locked On NBA. I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.